In the mid-1st century BC, Breezy learned from the Moirai, also known in Roman mythology as the Fates, of the destiny of Octavian, a child born in Cabeza de Buey, a small estate located on the Palatine Hill, very close to the Roman Forum, where the Academy of Rome was located. It was said that an astrologer had warned his father to leave the child outdoors and let him be devoured by wild beasts. However, he chose to ignore it. At the age of 4, young Octavian was orphaned, and his mother remarried a former governor of Syria who claimed to be a descendant of Alexander the Great. The boy was raised by his grandmother, Julia Caesar Minor, in the village of Velletri, in the Alban Hills, where Breezy would go to spend time with young Octavian, beginning a friendship between them. Octavian was an athletic child, not inclined to violence, but brave, distinguished more by his intelligence and cunning. A know-it-all, he quickly found a good ally in the marvelous dropperfly, Cincinnatus the Roman, with whom he discussed various interesting topics from a very young age. It was Cincinnatus the Roman who asked Breezy, when she and Octavian were of similar age, to take him to meet Albunia, the Tiburine Sibyl. Albunia had been born in a magical cave in the sulphurous springs of the ancient summer city of Tibur, where, many millennia before, the magic dropper had been kept safe. This occurred while it was in the possession of the goddess Gaia, the Great Mother Earth, before she gave it to Breezy in the sacred cave, which connects to the Palace of Thrace. Breezy and Octavian set off for the lands of Albunia, riding the magical horses Xantho and Ballio, accompanied by their inseparable pets and the marvelous dropperfly, Cincinnatus the Roman. The Sibyl's cave was surrounded by a beautiful countryside landscape of picturesque forests and sparkling waterfalls, where she had consecrated her own grove, a deep well, and a small temple. When they arrived at the misty, melodious cave, thanks to the musical sound of the waterfalls and the mysterious thermal gases, the enigmatic Sibyl Tiburina was already waiting for them, greeting all the newcomers. Then, during an intriguing revelation, the Sibyl foretold to young Octavian everything that would happen to him in his long life, as long as he didn't go to extremes, so as not to alter his destiny. She also told him that during his reign, a child would be born in his vast domains, who for some very powerful reason would change the face of the earth. At the end of the interview, the Sibyl gave him a small winged alabaster sculpture, representing Nike, the goddess of victory. Before they left the cave, the Tiburina Sibyl also had a private conversation with Breezy, where she warned him about the unbridled ambition of the earth gods, especially the malevolent Hecate, queen of witches and ghosts. After the visit to the Tiburina Sibyl's cave and the death of his beloved grandmother, Julia Caesar the Younger, where he gave a moving farewell speech, Octavian went to live with his mother in Rome and quickly began studying at the academy, run by Breezy, Chloris, and their other collaborators. It was at the academy in Rome that Octavian formed a close relationship with students Marcus Vipsanius Agrippa and Gaius Silnius Maecenas, from which a fruitful and unbreakable friendship would blossom. Thanks to his influential great-uncle Julius Caesar, Octavian began to obtain positions of power at a very young age. In 47 BC, at just 16 years old, he was elected to the College of Pontiffs, and the following year he was put in charge of the Greek Games, which were held in honor of Venus Genitrix, or Aphrodite, the mother of the Trojan prince Aeneas, his most illustrious ancestor. As soon as his mother allowed him to join the troops of his respected uncle in Hispania, he sailed for the front lines, accompanied by his inseparable ally, the marvelous dropperfly Cincinnatus the Roman, who shared his misfortunes since the ship they were traveling on sank. After fate intervened and they reached the coast with a few other survivors, they had to cross extremely hostile territory. Upon finding themselves alive in the camp of his uncle, Octavian and the marvelous dropperfly Cincinnatus the Roman, they readily agreed that the prophetic words of the Tiburine Sibyl were beginning to be fulfilled. Upon learning of his nephew's fate, the astute general, a fervent admirer of Cincinnatus the Roman, who had accompanied him on his military campaigns in Gaul, allowed them to travel in his chariot. Upon returning to Rome, Julius Caesar secretly deposited a new will with the Vestal Virgins, naming his nephew Octavian as his adopted son and principal heir. Breezy, thanks to his secret alliance with the Vestal Virgins, learned of the unfolding events in favor of the blessed Octavian. After completing his studies at the Academy in Rome, Julius Caesar also had the foresight to send the young Octavian to study at the philosophical school of Apollonia in Illyria as part of his rigorous academic and military training. Octavian was accompanied by his friends Agrippa and Maecenas. The marvelous Roman dropperfly also went to spend the night there, having grown fond of the young man and certain that his destiny would be fulfilled, keeping Breezy informed of his every move. Unexpectedly, Breezy and Prometheus, accompanied by the protective cat Cyprus, arrived at the philosophical school of Apollonia in Illyria to deliver the bad news of his uncle's assassination to young Octavian, but above all to protect him. They took him to a camp of Caesar's veteran legionaries, where they revealed to him that he was Julius Caesar's heir, according to his last will and testament held by the Vestal Virgins. This revelation led him to become Caesar's political heir. Octavian, now known as Octavianus, began a long political career that led him to confront his powerful enemies, culminating in the decisive victory at the naval battle of Actium, where his fleet, commanded by General Agrippa, defeated the feared Mark Antony, allied with Queen Cleopatra VII of Egypt. After becoming the victor of the violent civil wars that plagued Rome, Octavianus ordered the Altar of Victory, that fascinating solid gold sculpture that had belonged to Pyrrhus of Epirus, to be placed in the Roman Senate. In this way, Octavianus immortalized the predictions of the Tiburine Sibyl, who had given him that small winged alabaster sculpture of Nike, the goddess of victory, as a gift, after Breezy had taken him to meet her in her magical cave in the city of Tibur. Therefore, his rise to power, plagued by violence and terror, was transformed into a peaceful and splendid reign, avoiding, as the Sibyl had warned him, to go to extremes so as not to twist his fate. The Senate, in recognition of all his victories and achievements, granted him the unprecedented titles of Augustus and Princeps, along with other important honors, thus beginning the Principate, the new system that would govern the Roman Empire. It is worth noting that Breezy would have great admiration and respect for Octavian's friends, Agrippa and Maecenas, who played a fundamental role in the political, social, and cultural development of the city. On the one hand, the versatile Agrippa, under the orders of Caesar Augustus, began a gigantic project to beautify the city of Rome. A highlight of this project was the first great Roman bath complex, known as the Baths of Agrippa, after the engineer Gaius Sergius Orata invented the hypocaust, a heating system that later allowed for the spread of the famous Roman baths throughout the Mediterranean. Agrippa was another prominent benefactor in Roman history, who in his will bequeathed his famous baths to the Roman people for free public use. On the other side is Gaius Cilnius Maecenas, who became an important patron of the arts and a friend of poets and writers. His name, Maecenas, became synonymous with one who fosters and sponsors artistic activities for the love of art. Breezy will frequently visit the famous Maecenas Gardens, located on the Esquiline Hill, where he will share the space with Horace, Virgil, Propertius, Lucius Varius Rufus, and many other writers and artists who took their first steps as students at the Academy in Rome. Horace, recognized as the foremost lyric and satirical poet in the Latin language, coined the phrase sapere aude in one of his famous epistles, thanks to his relationship with the marvelous dropperfly Cincinnatus and his peculiar way of saying, "Dare to think," when he flashed his luminous dodecahedral section. The long reign of Caesar Augustus served to cement the Roman Empire, transforming the city of Rome in his own words, from a city built of stone to one built of marble, changing the monumental topography of the city center with his constructive work. Breezy and his collaborators enjoyed unforgettable events alongside the loving Vestal Virgins and some of the marvelous dropperflies of the vast empire, led by Cincinnatus the Roman, who became quite a personality thanks to his close friendship with Rome's first citizen. However, during Caesar Augustus's reign, Breezy and his loyal collaborators, along with other unexpected allies, will have to confront the ambition of the cursed earth gods, commanded by the all-powerful Hecate, who is willing to go to any lengths to seize the magic dropper.